Alrighty here. So remember when we're looking at domain, we're looking at x values, and range, we're looking at y values. So on this graph, when I'm looking for the domain, we'll start with that first here. I'm looking at the x values. I want to know how far left and right this function is going. And if I trace this function, the furthest left this function goes is here at -3. And the furthest right this function goes is here. So here's the furthest left, and then here's the furthest right, and that is at +3 for the x value, right? I'm looking at the x value, not the y value here. And so that will be +3. So my range is going to be the interval from -3 to 3 and everything in between. At -3, I will have an open parentheses. And at 3, I will have a closed bracket because it's a closed circle and an open circle. Alrighty, so now let's look at the range. So the range is going to be the y values. So that's going to be up and down. So if I look at how high my function goes, this is the highest point, and this is the lowest point. The highest point, the y value here, is 3. And the lowest point down here at the bottom, my lowest point, the y value is -3. So the range also goes from -3 to 3. But at the y value of -3 down here, we have a closed circle. And at the y value of +3 up here, we have an open circle. So it'll be closed at -3 and open at 3. All right, let's look at the next graph over here. For the domain, we'll do the x values. So I want to look at how far left and right my function goes. So if I start here on the right and then go left, the furthest left my function goes is here. And I want to look at the x values, right? So the furthest left is right here. The x value there is -2. Then I want to see how far right my function goes. And the furthest right my function goes is all the way up here, right? This point down here only goes to 2. But all the way up here, we go to 3, right? The furthest right. And I want the x value, not the y value. So the x value there is 3. So my range or my domain will be everything from -2 to 3, because my function goes from -2 to 3 as far as the x values go. At -2, it will be a bracket, because whenever my function is here, these are all closed dots automatically when we're there. My function gets there. And when I get to 3, it's a closed dot, so that will also be a closed bracket. Now let's look at the range. So the range is going to be the up and down, the y values. How far high and low does my function go? So the highest y value my function reaches is going to be all the way up here. Here's the highest part of my function. The y value there is 5, so that'll be the top part of my range. And then the lowest value of my function is down here, and the y value there is -4. That'll be the bottom of my range, the lowest, so lowest to highest. At 5 up here, we have a closed circle, and at -4 down here, we have an open circle. So open at -4, closed at 5. Over here for my domain, for left and right, the x values, I want to look left and right. I want to see how far left does my function go. The furthest left my function goes is here, and the furthest right my function goes is right here. So the furthest left, the x value here is 0. And the furthest right my function goes here, the y value is 5. At 5, it's a closed circle, so it will be a bracket. And at 0, it's an open circle, so it'll be an open parentheses. Now we'll look at the range. So that's the up and down, the y values. So the highest y value that my function is here, and the lowest y value is down here. So the highest value up here, the y value here is 4. So that will be the highest value. And then the lowest value down here, the y value is -4. So that'll be -4. Down here at -4, we have a closed circle. So that'll be a closed bracket. Up here at 4, we have an open circle. So that will be a parentheses. Alrighty, let's look at this next graph here. This one has dots, right? So my function only hits a certain amount of x values. So if I look at how far left and right, the first x value is -1, but I don't want to make an interval here because the interval will include all the points in between, and this does not go from here to here. So it does not include all the x values in between. So my first x value that my function hits is -1. But because these are not intervals, I need to use my squiggle brackets here, okay, to talk about this set and listing the numbers out one by one. So then my next point here, my x value is 0, so my domain includes 0. Then my next point here, my x value is 1. My next point here, my x value is 2. And my last point here, my x value is 3. Again, I'm looking at the x values, right, at each of these because the domain is the x. And I have to make sure to use the squiggle brackets here because it's not an interval, it's just those 5 x values in my domain. Not all of these numbers in between are in my domain. So my range, my y values here, my range here, my y values are what y values my function does. So the lowest y value are these two right here. Okay, the y value here is 1. So that's the first number in my range. The next number in my range, this point here, the y value is 2. The highest y value here is 3. And that will be all the numbers in my range. If you find it easier, another way that you could do this is you could write the coordinates on every point and do it like problem 7 below. So for example, this point here is 3, 4. This point here is 2, 1. This point here is -1, 1. This point here is 0, 3. And then just like we do the domain and range down here, you could just look at the x values and put those in your domain. Oh, I forgot this one. 1, 2. Put the x values in your domain, and then take the y values and put them in your range. But if you have a repeat, you won't write it. So that's another way to do that one. Alrighty, so for this one here, number 5, our domain, our x values are left and right. The furthest left my function is here. The furthest right my function is it never stops going right. So the furthest left is right here. The x value is -3. And the furthest right my function goes is that it keeps going this way to the right forever and ever and ever. So that will be infinity. At -3, there's an open circle, so that'll be a parentheses, and then infinity always has a parentheses. For the range, the y values, the up and down, I want to see how low my function goes. So the lowest my function is right here. This is the lowest point there on my function. And so the lowest point here, the y value, is -1. That's going to be a bracket because every time we have a point on a graph, it's a closed circle unless they say it's an open circle. So that point right there, it is a point. We just don't draw it as a point, right? All of these are little individual points here, every single point on the graph. So it's a closed bracket because it gets to that. It reaches that number. Then how far up does my function go? Well, over here, it's going to go up, 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 and never stop. So it's going to keep going up. So it's going to go up to positive infinity for the y values. So the lowest it gets is here, and the highest it gets is all the way up. For number 6 here, my domain, the furthest left point is here. The furthest right point is here. So the left point right here, the x value, because remember your domain is x, is -3. It's an open circle. And then the furthest right my function goes is here. The x value here is going to be 1. And that's a closed circle, so it should be a bracket. For my range, we're going to go up and down. We want to see how high and how low does my function go. The lowest point is right here, and the highest point is right here. So the lowest point here, my y value, because the range is the y value, is -3. And my highest point up here, the y value is 3. So my range will be all the numbers from -3 to 3. They're both going to be brackets because, like I said, every time we're on a graph, it's a closed circle. All of these little points are closed circles here, right? So if we're here, we get there. Unless they say it's an open circle, it's closed. That's a little invisible point there. Unless they say it's an open circle, it's closed. We get to that point. It's included. Alrighty, so here for the domain and range, when we have a set of points, it's kind of like this problem up here. The domain will be all of the x values. So my domain will be a set, but now it's going to be a set of just 4 numbers because there's only 4 numbers in my answer here. So there's only going to be 4 numbers in my set. 3, 2, 0, and -2. No other numbers in between. Make sure to use the curly brackets because it's not an interval. And in my range, there's only 4 numbers. Okay? So in my range here, we will have -1, 4. Ooh, let's put them in order. -1, 4, -5, and 7. Okay, those are all the y values. Now we want to go ahead and put these in order, so let's go ahead and change this a little bit and put them in order from smallest to greatest. So my domain will be -2, 0, 2, and 3. I just put them in order. And then here we'll have -5, -1, 4, and 7. So I'm just going to rearrange the order. -5, -1, 4, and 7. Alrighty, lastly here, we're going to do the x and y intercepts and then the domain and range. And we're going to write our x and y intercepts as ordered pairs. So here, we'll look at our x intercepts first. So our x intercepts are going to be where we cross the x-axis. So that's these 2 points right here. So the coordinates of those points are 2, 0, and -2, 0, because the y value is 0 at those points since we're on the x-axis. So this is going to be -2, 0, and 2, 0. Our y-intercept is where we cross the y-axis, so that's this point. This point, its x value is 0, and its y value is -3. So this will be 0, -3. Then we'll look at our domain. So how far left does my function go? How far right does my function go? Well, it's going to go left forever, and it's going to go right forever. So my domain will be -infinity to infinity. How far up and down y values does my function go? Well, it goes up forever, right? These guys here are going up forever. But where's the lowest point on my function? It stops here. Now that's not a super nice number, right? So we're going to have to do, we'll kind of approximate. So it'll be like -3.5 all the way to infinity. Now this should be a closed bracket on the -3.5 because, like I said, there's an automatic point here. Every time we're on a graph, it has a point, and it's going to be closed unless they say that it is open. Okay, so over here on B, my x-intercepts are wherever we touch the x-axis. So that'll be here. This point is -4, 0, and this point is -1, 0, because the x value is -4 and the y value is 0. So my x-intercepts will be -4, 0, and -1, 0. Notice that these are points. These are not intervals, right? These are points. My y-intercept is this guy right here where we cross the y-axis. That point is 0 for the x value, -2 for the y value. And then for my domain, I'm going to see how far left and how far right does my function go. When this function goes up here, it's going to be going left and left forever. And when it's going down here, it's going to keep going right, right, right forever. So my domain, it's never going to stop going left, and it's never going to stop going right. So it will be -infinity to infinity. As far as my range goes, up and down, my function goes up forever here over here and down forever over here. So my y values are also going to go to -infinity to infinity.